Today, dear listeners, we pay a visit to a very cold, desolate place on the other side of the world, Russia. We managed to get in contact with a correspondent in Russia, Vadim Budinsky, in the hopes he could shed some light on Russia's economic status. Vadim is the manager at the local nickel factory in Norilsk, Russia. The town is known for its extensive nickel mining and the major economy that sprang up in the surrounding area.
Привет! Hello, my friend.
Vadim was born and raised here in Norilsk. He has never known anything but the snowstorms and short days of the Arctic Circle. He comes from a long line of nickel miners, and Vadim was no different.
I started working as a nickel miner at 14 years old, then kind of worked my way up.
Wow, that sounds rough. Well, was it your choice or more of like a family expectation?
No, I was very excited to come to the mines. I mean, of course, I had to fulfill family expectations, but I was enthusiastic about it for sure. The economy. Well, for starters, we provide the world with about 30% of its natural resources, our country being so big, you know? We have the Ural Mountains, full of fossil fuels to the southwest. We, of course, have the nickel mines here in the Arctic Circle, as well as other mineral deposits. And then in the south and west, we grow grain and keep livestock. Most of our exports are mineral products, but we also supply much oil to Europe, Ukraine, Poland, and such.
So how would you say your economy and GDP would stack up compared to the other world powers like the US?
To be honest with you, it doesn't. There is a $15 trillion gap between Russia's GDP and America's, but we are still 6th largest GDP in the world. There is no doubt we aren't the richest country, but recently we have seen slow but steady increase in GDP growth rate. I think it was negative 2.5% a few years ago. Is now above 1.5%, so things are getting better for us, definitely.
So how does stuff like that affect your everyday life?
From what I hear, it is not so different from United States, you know? We still have good employment, and we actually have a lower amount of people below the poverty line. We are even affected by some of the same economic problems as the US. For example, we were hit by the Great Recession just the same, so yeah, not so different.
Well, thank you for this information, Vadim, but we're out of time.
Пока, my friend.
As it would turn out, Russia's economic status isn't so bad, but what is its political relations? Well, that brings us to our next segment. Roll the music!
As we all may have known or heard, Russia has been quite shaky in its friendship with the United States for the past couple of decades. During the Cold War, a nuclear war could have happened any second of any day. However, today, recent meetings with Putin over the last decade has yielded good results. Russia, although not being entirely friendly, isn't our enemy at all. But this doesn't mean that the situation with the United States is 100% good either. The recent turmoil with Ukraine's terrain dispute over Crimea with Russia has torn sides. We have for the most part sided with Ukraine, imposing harsh economic sanctions onto Crimea after it was annexed by Russia. On top of this, every country also recognizes Crimea as a part of Ukraine, even if it is under complete Russian rule. However, recent meetings with President Trump and Putin seems to have garnered success, although we do not know too much about these meetings, as they were held confidentially. We can certainly be thankful that we aren't back in a Cold War just like we were almost 30 years ago.
Thank you, Dan, for that introduction. With all the news articles we've seen in the last 2 years, the relations between the United States and Russia are still an ongoing topic, making for some of the most trending stories in politics and global news today. Although our governments in daily life may be different, there are a surprising amount of alleged connections between President Donald Trump and Russian President Vladimir Putin. As many of us know, a growing topic of interest has been the investigations of a supposed rigged election in which Russian politicians were able to cause instability in Hillary Clinton's campaign, but also promote Donald Trump during the elections. Nothing is still definite about this, but the investigations seem to act as an infinite hole of accusations and evidence on what really went down during that 2016 election. And now, we interrupt this program to bring you our sponsorship company, OxiClean.
What do you do for stains detergent can leave behind? Well, Maytag and Whirlpool recommend OxiClean because it gets out the spills, the spots and splatters, whether they're ground in, smeared on, or dried up, it doesn't matter. That's the power of OxiClean.
Now, I know some of us are wondering what exactly is the point of bringing up this topic once again. It's been 2 years and going on 3, and it's an old story beaten to a pulp. The point we're trying to make here, though, is that political involvement leads to trouble, especially when foreign countries are involved. Political and economic involvement with other nations is sometimes a mandatory thing when it comes to trade and world economics, but we can't stress enough that any hint of a connection between the US president and a nation like Russia will only lead to problems which we already see forming. And that concludes our evening news. More next week, and thanks for listening.
Stanislav Vasily, a factory worker of Norilsk, is joined by a lost American tourist trying to find their way around Norilsk.
Hey bro, what's the direction to the nearest Disney World from here?
Наркотикал, я еду на трамвай. Если ты не знал, наркотикал.
Yeah, what? What? What did you just say to me?
Nothing bad, trust me. Ты баран и дурак, и вообще-то ты...
Okay, listen here, bucko. You better get out of here. Our USA of America's military is gonna come over and show you your place.
Oh, so do you come from Kansas or Arkansas? Or perhaps Rhodey's land?
Idaho. Not like you'd know.
Idaho?
Break it off!
I throw a glass bottle, missing them but hitting the wall behind them.
And there they go, chasing each other through the Russian fields of rye and snow. Finally, as Stanislav dives through the wintry river of ice and freezing water, the disgruntled tourists have no way of reaching him. As Stanislav emerges from the other side of the river, the only thing the tourists can do is walk back and wait for the man to return. After 14 hours of waiting, the man returned to the factory and got back to work. However, his day is about to get even worse.
I think you'd escape, huh?
Well, I sort of did if you think about it.
Tell me where the Disney World is, or else.
You know you're in the Arctic Circle, right? The only fun you'll have around here is riding polar bears.
As the arguing continues, little do they know that a full-scale invasion of Russia is going on, and their factory is about to be invaded by US troops. Stanislav is arrested, and the tourists get the last laugh. The end.
Today we have a special guest, one who immigrated here after the collapse of the Soviet Union and is here to tell the story as detailed in his upcoming book.
I would first like to give my sincerest thanks to the broadcasters and the wonderful cleaning power of OxiClean for letting me share my story today. I come from old lines of Mother Russia, back when the Bolsheviks ruled. Life was hard in the Soviet Union. Childhood was hard too. Mother was taken away early in life, sent to work to her death in the cruel gulags for speaking out against the regime. Father never recovered, resorting to the drink to solve his problems. With mother gone, his only father, too, was sent to the gulag. I had to work to get scraps of food at my father's place. Those days in the factories probably shortened my life by a decade. When Berlin Wall came down and the Iron Curtain fell from its hangers, life did not improve in the new Russia. I decided to move to America, the land I had known as the enemy for most of life. I came to love my new home in America. In this new country, I had the one thing I lacked in Russia: freedom. Life was still hard, but it no longer had to worry about the gulags. I could speak my mind and no Politburo could stop me. I created small business here in America, and without interference of the state, like in Russia, I managed to make life finally good.
Well, that's all the time we have this week. If you'd like to hear more of his inspiring story, you can pick up his book later this week.